आए तो सही है। अच्छा, तो the purpose of our talk is just to have a quick look at how did we come to this point in time where we are discussing TAVR as first line therapy even in sort of younger patients. Aortic stenosis, we won't go through the definition. We know what aortic stenosis, severe aortic stenosis is. For the purpose of all the trials, these were the three criteria that had to be fulfilled, at least for the FDA trials. A valve area had to be less than 1, mean gradient had to be more than 40, or the peak velocity had to be more than 4 meters per second. This is Eugene Braunwald's paper from Circulation 1968, and this data still holds true that as long as these patients with severe aortic stenosis are asymptomatic, their life expectancy is the same as anybody who does not have aortic stenosis. As soon as they develop symptoms, the life expectancy falls down rapidly. Depending on which symptom they are presenting to you with, you can actually predict what sort of life expectancy you're looking at. If angina is the main presenting symptom, then 50% of them will be dead by 5 years. But if they came into you with heart failure, then there is a 50% mortality in 2 years. We skip through these. So SAVR and TAVR and then balloon aortic valvuloplasty used to be done pretty frequently. Even when I was training in 2015 as a fellow, we used to do about 400 BAVs every year. And when I was leaving Sinai in 2019, we were only doing 100 of them because everybody, we got all these indications for intermediate risk and everyone. So first TAVR was done by Anderson up in Russia. Nobody gives him credit for it, but he was the one who actually came up with this idea of a balloon expandable valve that he implanted in a pig. The person we are more aware of is Alan Kribbe, who passed away recently, and he decided that we use the calcium that is present on the native aortic annulus, and we use that to hold the valve in its place, and once the balloon is inflated. This is the first case that he did, surgically inoperable patient who was done in conscious sedation, and he was up in 15 minutes. So overall, when you look at these patients, surgeons have this score which is called the STS score, and based on that they tell the patient if they are low risk, intermediate risk, or high risk. This risk profile essentially means, based on certain risk criteria, that what is the chance of them dying after a surgical aortic valve replacement within the first 1 month of their procedure. So we have data from for TAVR across all these, across this entire spectrum. For futile aortic stenosis risk cases, which have a 50% or more mortality, we don't have a direct data, but we have the data from partner 1B, where patients who were considered futile risk, so futile risk means they were not given the option of surgical valve replacement. All they had was a TAVR versus medical therapy. And we know even in that particular cohort, which would have been a futile risk, would have died within a month, even there was a significant improvement in their life expectancy once they underwent TAVR. For the extreme risk cases, where the mortality risk was 15 to 50%, we have two US-based trials, Partner 1B and the core valve trial. For the partner trial, we saw a 20% reduced risk of death with TAVR versus standard therapy. Again, these are extreme risk cases, so the standard therapy for extreme risk cases is also medical therapy. So TAVR versus standard medical therapy shows a 20% reduction in all-cause mortality, and similar result was shown with the core valve. For the high-risk patients, this is where we started comparing them with actual surgical aortic valve replacement. Again, two US-based trials were done, Partner 1A and Pivotal Core Valve. For the partner trial, we saw there was no significant difference, but at least it proved that it was non-inferior. For the only thing which was sort of worse with TAVR was the risk of stroke. At 1 year and 2 years, there was slightly higher risk of stroke if balloon expandable valve was used for TAVR versus surgical aortic valve replacement. This particular signal was not seen with core valve. This is a significant reduction in mortality, and they got a significant score for superiority over surgical valve replacement as well, and the risk of stroke was lower. Then we come to the intermediate risk cohort with an STS score of 3.4 to 8 to 10. And again, two trials were completed, Partner 2A and the CERTAVI trial. For the Partner 2A with the balloon expandable sapien valve, we had a significant improved all-cause mortality with the TAVR versus surgical aortic valve replacement. A similar result was shown with the core valve, which was called the CERTAVI trial, and we had no major difference. And it was so for the low risk patients, these are probably the most recent ones. STS mortality risk of less than 3%. So remember, less than 3% means surgery all had their data for 20 or 30 years. For somebody who is doing TAVRs, for somebody who has at that sort of a low risk, one stroke in your first few patients means that you are going to cripple the data for the rest of the country actually. So one trial was done out of US, which is a NOTION trial, and then there were two trials done in US. NOTION trial was done basically in Europe. Again, the one drawback with the TAVR in this cohort was the rate of pacemaker implant. 38% pacemaker implant rate was seen in NOTION trial for these patients. This is low risk again. For the US based trials, Partner 3 showed a significant difference in terms of all-cause mortality and stroke when compared to surgical aortic valve replacement. And for the Evolute low risk trial, which is the self-expanding valve, we saw that there was no difference. So TAVR was as good as a surgical valve replacement in this particular patient cohort. So if you look at it, we have data across this entire spectrum of risk scores, right from low risk patients where you have a STS score of less than 3% to a patient who has an STS score of 50%. TAVR does better than standard therapy, which is either surgical valve replacement or medical therapy in case of extreme risk patients. These were the guidelines in 2014. They were updated in 2017, where you see intermediate risk cohort also getting a 2A indication for TAVR. And then we had a latest update in 2022. I forgot to put that in. And you have low risk patients coming in, which are being given this indication as well. The answer to your question regarding young patients being given this option or not, the trials, the US based trials were done in low risk cohort on patients aged 65 and above, and the European ones were even older. They were like 70 or 75 and above. So I don't think there will ever be a guideline which will tell you that you can do it in a 20-year-old. They have to be done on case by case basis. So we have a few new indications. This is just an example of a balloon expandable valve. We have no time left, but I'll just show you, maybe we can leave it, because this is a surgical valve that was replaced a few years ago, had a coaptation gap as well as stenosis. This is a valve in valve case. We measure, Ali elaborated all these numbers. You do these numbers to make sure there is a very low risk of coronary occlusion. And then this is a slide from that valve in valve app that you can download, and that tells you which one will be the suitable valve for them. This is just a device to protect them from embolization and stroke. This is how the valves look like. We crossed it. This is just after core valve, and there was no gradient. I think the time is gone, so we'll finish it here. Thank you.